What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for September 22nd, 2023. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. Very good edition of SmackDown on Friday. Again, I thought no Rock this week, but we did have another appearance by John Cena, who played a pretty heavy role on the show, beginning of the show, ending the show, setting up a big match for Fastlane, maybe replacing AJ Styles with another big name that was absent from this episode that we'll get into. All of that momentarily. I do have to address this first. Mere moments before SmackDown went on the air last night, not even last Friday, we found out Matt Riddle released from WWE. Now, we had a lot of releases on Thursday. We found out more on Friday morning from the main roster, NXT, developmental. I talked about most of them on WrestleRant Radio on Thursday. I put up the clip here on the channel later in the day on Thursday, including Dolph Ziggler, Elias, Mustafa Ali. Some pretty surprising names. I'm not all surprising. Only really Dolph was surprising. Ali was surprising in the sense that he was on the show doing stuff on NXT. I mean, so was Dana Brooke, but, Ali was slated to get a championship match next weekend. Whoever made that decision to cut him clearly did not know that and did not care, so Ali no longer in WWE. I already talked about those. The names I did not get a chance to talk about that were, released later on in that day. Dana Brooke, Maximum Male Models, people like that. Again, no real surprise there. Ikemen Jiro from NXT. Matt Riddle, though, was announced later in the day on Friday. It came out from WrestleVotes that Matt Riddle was, not Matt Riddle specifically, but there would be one more release this weekend. A lot of releases went down on Thursday. Not so many I don't think anyone down on Friday. I think it was all on Thursday we found out more from Friday, or about, on Friday, whatever. And there would be one more name over the weekend. Ended up being Matt Riddle, which wouldn't really come as much of a surprise to anyone that has been following the Matt Riddle drama for the last couple of weeks. Listen, supremely talented guy, could have been a world champion in that company if he just got out of his own fucking way. I mean, he was his own worst enemy. Time and time again, he was either, getting heat from people backstage for shit that he was saying, shit that he was doing, specifically in recent years. I mean, he's surprised. It's honestly a miracle for him that he was even employed up to this point. There were, allegations thrown his way a couple of years ago. Whether those were proven false or not, I'm not sure. I know he denied it, and the case was dismissed. It doesn't mean that he wasn't guilty, but even still, he avoided that whole mess. That was the whole reported reason from some people, the rumored reason as to why they got rid of the Matt part of his name, even though Matt Riddle is his real name, Matthew Riddle. They got rid of the Matt part of his name because they didn't want you looking up the full name and seeing like the lawsuit or the sexual allegation against him, whatever at that point, which was so dumb. Like the fact they would get rid of the Matt part of his name because of that. But they gave him that back last year. And he just kept avoiding getting released. Controversy after controversy. Again, I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but he disappeared from TV late last year through the beginning of 2023 because apparently he was in rehab to take care of an issue that he had. Clearly did not stick because coming off the latest incident from a couple of weeks ago, again, his own doing, where he was apparently belligerent on an airplane. And that alone may not have been enough to get him fired. We don't know if that would have even come out, but he was belligerent on an airplane. And then either to cover it up or just because he wasn't in the right frame of mind at that point, he posted on Instagram a picture of himself and a picture of a TSA officer at the airport, I think in New York, saying this person sexually assaulted me, blah, blah, blah. That's a pretty serious accusation, and he took it down almost immediately. So clearly he wasn't in the right frame of mind when he posted that. It was a very dumb fucking thing to say, and you can get into a lot of trouble for saying something like that. It doesn't matter if it was up for an hour or not, 5 minutes. The fact of the matter is he posted it, and he got himself into a lot of trouble. There was an internal investigation in WWE, apparently, with Riddle and the TSA officer, whatever. They had an investigation, because, again, they don't take that stuff lightly, and it led to his release. When you hear about these releases on Thursday, I was surprised we didn't hear his name among those cuts on Thursday. Not sure why they waited till Friday. This isn't a budget cut thing. This wasn't a, we have no plans for the guy. It was, this guy is too much of a headache. And we talked about it before on hashtag AskGSM and on WrestleRant Radio and stuff, in the sense that Riddle, no one will deny the guy's talent. He had a great run in WWE between NXT, being on the main roster, former U.S. champion, tag team champion, the RK Bro stuff was great, and Randy Orton could be on his way back at some point. He was spotted at the Performance Center a couple days ago. He could be on his way back soon. It won't be with RK Bro. That's over. So, and the only person that Riddle has to blame for that release is himself. It's not a case of, again, WWE creatively fumbled him, or they didn't do enough with him, or they let him go prematurely. No, they gave him, honestly, more chances than most people get. He got a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances to kind of clean up his act, and he didn't do it. And it came to a point where, especially now in the midst of a merging with a company that he was already previously fired from years ago in UFC, almost 10 years ago, they don't need that headache. They don't want that bad publicity in the WWE, company tied to his name, blah, blah, blah. So they just got rid of him. Not a shocking release, but it is disappointing knowing what the guy could have done if he stayed on the right track, and he just couldn't get out of his own way, like I said. Now, could he clean up his act and end up elsewhere? Could he come back to WWE at some point? Entirely possible. I would love to see him get his shit back in order and then come back at some point down the road. But what has to happen first is that he has to get his shit in order. That's the real key there. So it might take some time. It might never happen. We really don't know, because it's happened enough times where, and it's not just a WWE issue too, he was getting into trouble pre-WWE, and this has been happening for years. This is not a new thing, or is that a rough year? This has been happening on and off for years now. WWE clearly not the right environment for him at this place in time. Does he go right to AEW? I mean, he probably would want to. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm thinking this guy's a fucking pain in the ass. I haven't worked with him myself, but I'm just thinking, I'm hearing all the stories. The guy could be a legal headache. Why bring him in at this point? Maybe down the road again, if he cleans up his shit and he can kind of get back on the right track. Until then, he has a lot of shit that he's got to figure out. As far as SmackDown on Friday, again, I thought it was a really good show. Opening the episode, John Cena, bringing out AJ Styles, challenging the Bloodline Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso to a match on this very show. Because it came out from PW Insider, I think, earlier on in the day. I saw the report that they were going to do the match on this show. And I see that, and I'm thinking, why the fuck would you not advertise that? That's a John Cena match right there. We knew John Cena would be on the show. He's advertised for every SmackDown for like the next month and a half. But why would you just give that match away as opposed to saving it for Fastlane? And that's what they ended up doing. And if you feel bad for the people in attendance, because Cena said, oh, I want to fight on this show, I feel like being in a match, blah, 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 and then it didn't happen, no need to worry, because I think Cena ended up wrestling anyway after the show was over in a dark match. I think with Montez Ford, which sounds like a really cool match. I doubt it was more than a pretty basic dark match, but it is pretty cool that they did it, and that Montez Ford worked double duty on the show, because he ended up wrestling the LWO, which I'll talk about in a second, but that's cool. So anyway, they challenged Solo and Jimmy to a match. It did not happen on the show. We'll get to that later, but Solo and Jimmy did come out. I say the Bloodline. Jimmy's not technically a part of the Bloodline. That's the whole question right now. Is he in the group? Is he not in the group? He's not really in the group, so I'm not saying the Bloodline, but he thinks that he is. That's the whole story here, and it's fucking dumb, but whatever. Because again, I'll say this one more time, because I said it already enough times in the last couple of weeks, but he came back after SummerSlam, cost Jay the match at SummerSlam, and said, I don't want to be in the group. And Roman even said, I'll give you anything you want. And he probably would have accepted him back. Jimmy outright said, I do not want back in the group. I just wanted to prove to my brother that he should not be champion, because I don't want him becoming you, Roman. So then why would he now want to be part back in the group? That was only a month before he came back and then said that he wants back in the Bloodline. It makes no sense. Anyway, our first match on the show, the LWOs, Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar taking on the Street Profits. Very good match here. They got some time. Good sprint. The LWO going over. The story here was this. Angelo Dawkins could have utilized the help of Bobby Lashley at ringside. He attempted to help them cheat. Dawkins denied it, and they ended up losing as a result. It cost them the win, and Bobby Lashley was not happy. It is worth noting the Profits are still coming out with Bobby, but they're still coming out with the same music, the same attire, the same attitude, still pandering to the audience. And I'm hoping that's by design, because the whole story is they've been a little more aggressive, but not aggressive enough to take home the wins when they matter most, like here, because they lost to the LWO. They beat Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde last week. They've beaten the Brawling Brutes before. They've beaten the OC, but they lost here when it mattered most, and Bobby was not happy. And Bobby even said backstage afterward, give me back the suits, give me back the rings. If you're not going to fucking take this seriously, then I want all my shit back, and we're done. So hopefully that leads to the next step of the storyline, where they have to take it up a notch and go full-on heel. They are kind of heels. They're apparently slated as heels on the internal roster, but they're not really acting like heels on the show. That's the problem. So this was a good match, though. We'll see what happens with them after that. We are getting Rey and Santos next week officially for the United States Championship. They're doing that match on the show next week. They're not saving it for Fastlane. I don't know why. They already did the match on SmackDown already, like a month and a half ago, or 2 months ago, I think, when Santos beat Rey by referee stoppage, and then obviously Rey became champion because Santos couldn't compete in storyline. And they've acknowledged that, so we'll see what happens next week. I don't know if that's where Santos turns heel or what happens, but I'm surprised they're doing it this soon and not waiting until a pay-per-view or holding off on it a couple of weeks. We had the WWE, I've been talking about matches that could have been saved for a pay-per-view. WWE Women's Championship match, IYO SKY defending against Asuka. First time ever on TV, and that's worth noting because they had a match at a house show about a year ago that I was at in Springfield, Mass. And it was a great match. It was only like 5 or 6 minutes, but it was a very good match. This got a lot more time. This went almost 20 minutes. So for all the complaints from me and other people about, the women on SmackDown don't get enough time, and they don't, from week to week, they have typically the shortest matches on the show. And sometimes Raw, too. Raw's a 3-hour show, so they tend to get more segments and more time. Not a lot more time. On SmackDown, they're typically shortchanged for time, and this has been the case for years. That was not the case this week. IYO and Asuka went in there and had a 20-minute excellent match. This was really, really good stuff. Like 2 or 3 commercial breaks. They had plenty of time. And IYO ended up pleasantly, surprisingly winning. Not clean. I mean, Charlotte and Bayley had a, brawl at ringside, setting up their match for next week. So there were some distractions from the rest of Damage Control and Flair, but IYO still pinned Asuka. I thought we would end this in a DQ or a non-finish, which I was hoping they wouldn't, because, again, you go that long to throw the match away after 20 minutes on a fucking DQ was annoying. Save that shit for, the matches that don't really matter. But no, she beat Asuka here. So, with that being said, I don't really know why they gave this away on pay-per-view, or rather on SmackDown, and not saving it for the pay-per-view. IYO did not defend at the last show, which was Payback a couple weeks ago. So I assume we're gonna get another match at Fastlane, because they weren't on Payback, and typically if you're not on one show, you'll be on the next one. I mean, typically Rhea did not defend at Money in the Bank or SummerSlam, so IYO might go 2 pay-per-views without defending. But still, I would hope they're gonna make the show. If we get a fucking Rhea, Nia, Jax, Raquel match before we get an IYO Asuka match, then I like Rhea and Raquel, and Nia not so much. But, this sounds like a much better match. We got it on free for TV. On TV for free, rather. We'll see. We might be headed towards an Asuka, IYO, Charlotte 3-way, which would be not my ideal direction. We just got a triple threat at SummerSlam with Asuka and Charlotte and Bianca. At that point, you were just replacing Bianca with IYO. Could it be a 4-way with Bayley, too? I mean, maybe. I don't really know why we can't have a proper program between IYO and Asuka. That, to me, is where the focus should be. Charlotte remaining in the title picture is a bummer. Bianca being out is really the catalyst for that, because it seemed like Charlotte and Bianca was the direction they were going in. And we still don't know why Bianca's out right now. It might be a mental health thing. It could be an injury thing. It could be she needed a break. But it's not a vacation with Montez. Montez is still on the show. We don't know why she's out or when exactly she'll be back. Hopefully she is back soon. And they might be saving Charlotte and Bianca for WrestleMania 2. That's another option. But again, you can't you can have other separate stories in that division that don't revolve around the title. Like, what the fuck happened to Bayley and Shotzi? They're still kind of feuding, but not really. It's weird. So I don't know. It's a whole weird thing. But I thought this was a great match. I don't want to complain too much because I thought this was a really, really good match. And they delivered here in the time they were given. We had another really good match between Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, not against each other, but as partners against the Brawling Brutes, Ridge Holland and Butch. This got some time. Really good, competitive, fun sprint here between these 4. Theory and Waller ended up going over in what was a very good match. I'm digging the Theory and Waller tag team. Theory on his own feels like damaged goods for now. Not to say that he can't rebound. He's only 27. He has the rest of his career ahead of him. I don't know if he'll ever be a world champion at this point. I just don't see it currently at the rate that he's going and all the chances they've had with him. And it's not really his fault, I don't think. I think it's more of a creative issue, and they've dropped the ball on him many, many times. But for now, he feels like a mid-carder. So take him out of the U.S. title picture, which is what they've done. They gave him his rematch. He lost that too. And now he's focusing seemingly on the tag team ranks. He's still on the show consistently. Funnily enough, he's on the show more consistently now than he was when he was the United States champion. So it's a weird thing. But him and Waller have good chemistry. They had good chemistry in the ring here with the Brawling Brutes, and they won. So we'll see what happens on Raw this week. I could very well see Judgment Day dropping the tag titles right back to Owens and Zayn. And if that's the case, we could end up with a Theory and Waller versus Owens and Zayn tag team title program at some point in the next couple of months. And I would not be opposed to that. And just like that, we had our main event segment, which took up a lot of time because it was supposed to be, and you knew it was like an angle alert when Cena came out, and it was like 9:30. So you know this contract signing, specifically when Cena entered the ring and immediately signed the contract, that this was not going 30 minutes or 25 minutes because the show ends early on Fox. Which I guess if they go back to USA, and they are next year, that wouldn't be an issue. They're not going to get the overrun anymore, which they shouldn't, but they're going to end more at 10 and not at 9:57. So SmackDown gets 3 more minutes for anyone that cares. So Cena comes out, signs the contract, was supposed to be followed by Styles. Styles did not come out. He was being attacked in the back by Solo and Jimmy. And they did the Jeff Hardy thing with Orton from 2008 where Solo jumped off of a top. I mean, this wasn't remotely close to that in the sense that Jeff jumped from a lot higher, but Jeff obviously jumped on top of a mat from the Titantron on top of quote-unquote Randy Orton. Same thing here, where Solo jumped from a high structure, like a truck or something, and on top, quote-unquote, of AJ Styles. He didn't, whatever, so we didn't actually see it. But it was a cool visual, and they take out AJ. He gets, carted away in a fucking ambulance, whatever. We saw Mia Yim and we saw Carl Anderson. I think Luke Gallows is hurt, so he's not around right now. But they all leave in the hospital, or they all leave in the ambulance to the medical facility, not the hospital. That's what they fucking say now, which is stupid. That's what they've always said, but I thought we were back to calling it a hospital. I guess not. So Cena goes back into the ring and calls out Jimmy and Solo, who come out and leave him laying. And I thought this would be where we would see someone like LA Knight pop up, and he would make the save for Cena, set up the match for the pay-per-view. And that did not happen. We found out, I think it came out, I didn't watch the show live. It may have come out right before the show, during the show, or, obviously it came out at some point, but I don't know at what point it came out. LA Knight was at the show, and they sent him home because he had COVID-19. He tested positive, which hopefully gets better soon. It's not too serious. You never know with this stuff. Hopefully he ends up being okay, and he's back in time for next week to set up the match for the pay-per-view. Now, I don't know why they're slotting LA Knight in there instead of Styles. I'm not complaining. That's a pretty big spot for Knight to be in. If that's the main event of that pay-per-view, which there's nothing at stake, but if they wanted to do it in the main event, I'm not complaining. That's a pay-per-view main event for LA Knight. And they could very well be setting up LA Knight and Roman Reigns for the Survivor Series show, or rather Crown Jewel. I don't know if Roman's working Survivor Series. I don't think so. But it's interesting. I don't know if Roman's working Survivor Series, but if that's the case, and they're setting up LA Knight instead for Crown Jewel, instead of Styles, do they have to wait on Styles until Royal Rumble? I would not jump right into LA Knight and Roman Reigns. I feel like that's a match you wait on until the Rumble. Styles has already faced Solo. He's already faced Jimmy. Give him the spot at Crown Jewel. They can take him off TV for now, and that's fine, for a month or whatever, but he should be back in a month facing Roman at Crown Jewel. That's my opinion. I think you can hold off on Knight, and you can give Knight even this match at Fastlane. That's fine. I would hold off on Knight and Roman until the Royal Rumble. Give him more time to kind of develop into a main event star. He has the popularity, sure, but he's beaten The Miz twice. He needs more wins beyond that, beating higher names, and this would, help with that. So maybe he can face Solo. Maybe LA Knight at Crown Jewel, if Roman faces Styles, LA Knight can face Solo Sikoa and maybe beat him. I wouldn't be complaining about that. And that was essentially SmackDown in a nutshell. I thought it was a really good show. We got only three matches, I think. All three were good to great, specifically the women's match. Definitely make time to check that out if you missed it. The 2 tag team matches were good, and the stuff with Cena and Solo, Jimmy, and Styles was also well done. So I enjoyed the show. We'll see what happens next week. The Bloodline stuff is also just still confusing in the sense where we don't know if Jimmy's a part of the group or if he is, if he's not. I don't think he's supposed to be. That's the whole question we're supposed to be asking, but it's a dumb question to ask because they already answered that question seemingly a month and a half ago, when Jimmy said he didn't want back in the Bloodline, but now he does. It just doesn't make any sense, but they're clearly killing time until Roman Reigns comes back, and they're doing an effective job with it. Having Cena around certainly helps. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.